Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining me. Today's Daf is Nazir Daf 53, Omid A. And let's dive straight in. So it says, the Gemara expresses surprise at this argument, but wasn't it Rav himself who said, what's the footnote? The early commentaries dispute the meaning of this question. Some explain that the difficulty is a Rav's assumption that a spine and a skull contain more than a quarter cup of bones, Tosfot. Others maintain that the difficulty is more fundamental, as Rav's statement indicates that a Nazarite must shave for a quarter cup from the spine and skull, commenting on Nazir. The statement is necessary only for a whole spine and a skull that do not contain a quarter cup of bones. This indicates that his opinion of a quarter cup of bones from a spine does not impart much impurity. The Gemara answers, after he heard, one second, the statement of the Tana, he understood that from Rabbi Akiva. Bota Dishmaya Rabbi Akiva. This phrase is difficult for several reasons. It usually refers to the statements of the Amoraim, but here it's referring to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, a Tana. Also, in the context here, it is unclear which statement of Rabbi Akiva is being referred to. Furthermore, the relevance of this statement to the issue at hand is not immediately evident. These difficulties led many commentaries to prefer a different reading, which makes the Gemara easier to understand, although it necessitates an addition to the text. According to his explanation before the phrase, but wasn't it Rava who said, one should insert the statement, Ma Ukva said here, we are dealing with a spine and a skull that do not contain a quarter cup. Accordingly, the novelty in the Mishnah is that it is referring to this particular spine and skull. In other words, Rava's initial question was based on the assumption that the spine and skull certainly contain a quarter cup of bones, to which Ma'ukva responds that sometimes the spine or skull can be less than a quarter cup in volume. At this point, the Gemara asks, doesn't Rav himself agree with that opinion? After all, Rav himself stated the same ruling. The Gemara proceeds to answer that after this reasoning from Ma'ukva, not from Rabbi Akiva, as in the standard text, Rav retracted in accordance with Ma'ukva's explanation. Other commentators uphold the standard text of the Gemara. They claim that the Gemara statement is referring to the comment of Rabbi Akiva in Ohalot 2:4, according to which a spine and a skull from two corpses are richly impure. Rav maintained that it is reasonable to interpret this statement as referring to a spine and skull that contain less than a quarter cup, as a quarter cup of bones is mentioned separately in that same Mishnah. Even the rabbis dispute Rabbi Akiva's ruling only with regard to the bones from two bodies. However, it has an opinion in the case of a spine and skull that are not a quarter cup in volume, if they come from a single corpse. Tosfot in the Rosh. According to this interpretation, the phrase after he heard it from Rabbi Akiva must be understood in a rather unconventional manner, as after he analyzed and understood Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Others agree that the term heard means understood from Rabbi Akiva, although they offer a different explanation. The key fact is that Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis in the Braita disagree only with regard to bones from two corpses, but they do not dispute the relevant amount. This indicates that everyone agrees that broken bones do not impart impurity when the volume is less than a half calf, even if they come from the spine and skull, commented on Nazir. The early commentators analyzed these interpretations at length and attempt to justify the varying explanations, see Rabbeinu Peretz. Later authorities also struggle to explain this passage and suggest various emendations to the text. See Karen O. Agua and Birkat Rosh. That his dispute in the Brighton 52a considers a spine and a skull from two different corpses, not a quarter cup from a spine and skull. His interpretation of Rav to change his mind. The Gemara further suggests common here resolution from the following. Shammai says that one bone from the spine or from a skull imparts rich impurity. Although the rabbis dispute his ruling, it can be assumed that they do not have a vastly different opinion. Rather, they accept that a quarter cup from a spine imparts impurity and a Nazarite obligated to shave. The Gemara rejects this proof. Shammai is different, as he is very stringent, and therefore nothing at all can be inferred from his opinion with regard to that of the rabbis. The Gemara counters. If in fact the rabbis maintain an extremely different opinion from that of Shammai, and resolve the problem in the opposite manner. The reasoning here is that of Shammai, who is particularly stringent. From this it may be inferred that according to the opinion of the rabbis, one is not rendered impure and a Nazarite is not required to shave, unless there is a half cover of bones from the spine and skull. The Gemara rejects this claim as well. Perhaps the argument is not that extreme at all, and the rabbis disagree with Shammai only with regard to whether one bone from the spine or from the skull imparts impurity. However, with regard to a quarter cover of bones, what does that mean? Barova at Somos. It is uncertain whether a quarter cover of bones from a spine or skull imparts impurity in a tent. Consequently, a Nazarite does not shave after coming into contact with bones of this type. This is because Rami Baham's dilemma is left unresolved in any case. A Nazarite certainly must shave for touching or carrying these bones. Al-Allah in this case is no more lenient than with regard to a regular bone, which imparts impurity in the manner of the volume of an olive bulk. In the volume of a lentil bulk. Even the rabbis might concede that it renders people and items impure, and Nazarite must shave for it. Rabbi Eliezer says that some of the earlier elders would say a half cover of bones, a half log of bone, a cover of bones, from a corpse imparts impurity even if the bones contain less than the majority of the corpse's structure or less than the majority of its bones in number. The same applies to a half log of blood from a single body. Likewise, a Nazarite must shave if he comes into contact with either of these and start his term of Nazarite afresh. Furthermore, one is liable to receive the punishment of kari for entering the temple after coming into contact with these bones, and it is also prohibited for him to sacrifice the Paschal offering. The Rambam Sefer Avlah and 072, Sefer Avoda, Hilchot Beis HaMikdash 3:13, and Sefer Karbonot, Hilchot Korban Pesach 6:2, and a half log of blood impart rich impurity in all forms. The impurity implies by Torah law, and therefore they impart impurity in a tent. But a quarter cover of bones and a quarter log of blood, even as it contacts with impurity in a tent from a quarter cover of bones, they do not contain the majority of the number of bones in the body, or the majority of its structure. Or if you contain the impurity from a quarter cover of blood from a single corpse by contact, carrying, or in a tent, although it requires sprinkling and immersion for its purification, he does not avoid his term of Nazarite and he need not shave. Likewise, one who enters the temple after contracting impurity from these is not liable to receive punishment of kari. As for the Paschal offering, if the festival occurred on the 7th day of the Nazarite's purification, they slaughtered for him, and he need not wait for the second Pesach. The Rambam maintains that these sources of impurity apply by rabbinic law. Rambam Sefer Avlah, Hilchot Nazir 7:6, Sefer Karbonot, Hilchot Korban Pesach 6:2, and see Ravid and the Mishnah there, and Sefer Tahara, Hilchot Tumas Meis 3:3. They do not impart impurity in all forms, i.e., they do not impart impurity in a tent. And some of these elders would say that even a quarter calf of bone and a quarter log of blood impart impurity in all forms. This was a dispute of the earlier generation. The court that followed them said a quarter cup of bones and a half log of blood impart racial impurity in all forms. A quarter cup of bones and a quarter log of blood impart impurity only with regard to human offerings. I.e., the sages decreed that they impart impurity in a tent to invalidate human offerings, but not with regard to Nazarite. A Nazarite is not required to shave or bring offerings for impurity after contact with a quarter cup of bones or a quarter log of blood, and similarly one who performs the ritual of the Paschal offering may proceed despite the fact that he came into contact with this amount of blood or bones, as the sages did not apply this decree in cases where one's impurity precludes performance of a mitzvah whose neglect is punishable by kari. The Gemara asks about the ruling of halach in this case. Now consider there is a principle that the decision of the third opinion, what does that mean? There are two explanations of this principle. According to one opinion, the term decision in this context means the acceptance of a particular opinion by a last generation, and the third decision is referring to the acceptance of a compromised position which is not based on the legal reasoning of either of the disputing opinions. Commenting on the others maintain that the third opinion is referring to the decision of students whose ruling is not important enough to be accepted as a novel halacha. It's called the third because this expression initially referred to the third generation, Pesach 20b, and the Rebbeinu Hananiel there. Alternatively, the third opinion means external, i.e., is an insignificant opinion that is not taken seriously. The Meir and Chonan 137a. Is not considered a decision. A compromise ruling that seeks to resolve a dispute by including facts and cases that were not mentioned in the other two opinions are not considered decisive. So how could the latter court make a distinction between a paschal offering and other cases? But Yaakov ben Ba'idi said this ruling was not stated as a compromise. Rather, they said it from tradition, from Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, the latter of the prophets. This was not a new attempt to meditate between the two earlier opinions, but an ancient ruling in the same way. The Mishnah taught for all of these aforementioned sources of its impurity, a Nazirite shaves. The Gemara explains the phrase "for these" in the Mishnah's first clause serves to exclude a bone that is barley grain bulk. A bone that is a volume of barley grain bulk and parts which impure by contact and carrying, and the Nazirite must shave if he is rendered impure in this manner. However, a bone that is a barley grain bulk does not impose impurity in a tent. Sefer Aflah Hechad Nazir 7:6 and Sefer Tahara Hechad Tumas Meis 2:10:3:2. As for touching and carrying it, yes, the Nazirite shaves, but for his overlying sin, no, he does not shave. And the phrase "for these" in the Mishnah's latter clause serves to exclude an overhanging Haskichut stone. So what does that mean? Chuchis, overhanging. Although the term shechuchit is usually synonymous with shechukit, meaning glass, here it is referring to an item that covers or shades. In this context, it means a stone that is not part of the structure of a grave, situated over the grave and covers it. If branches protruding from a tree or stone jutting out from a wall serve as a tent over a Nazirite and a corpse, the Nazirite need not shave or negate his Nazirite for this impurity. And the Roman Sefer 7:6. Most commentators maintain that this is similar to the hanging branches with projecting stones listed in the next Mishnah among the items for which a Nazirite is obligated to shave. In other words, this refers to stones that project from a fence over the body. Some commentators cite a version of the text that says so unambiguously to the Meir. The commentary on Nazir suggests two interpretations. Perhaps this refers to a very heavy stone, i.e. a boulder placed on the corpse, which does not obligate the Nazirite to shave, although it does render him ritually impure if he sits on it. Alternatively, it means a stone carried by the Nazirite on his shoulders, which overlies a grave. The Nushat Rivan. Some say that an overhanging shechiyut stone means one made of glass, shechiyut, a transparent stone, which is not impart impurity, although a stone that forms a cover over a corpse imparts impurity in a tent, nevertheless not obligated to shave due to this sort of impurity. In its list of sources of impurity for which a Nazir must shave, the Mishnah taught a how covered bones. That's the end of that Amud. Thank you very much for listening, and I wish you a good day and peace in Israel. All the best. Bye.